Okay, good morning, everyone. In behalf of PACT National, we would like to welcome participants from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Welcome to the hashtag PACT Impact webinar series. I'm Jasper Perez and I will be your moderator for today. This would be a series of talk that would help us address important challenges and prepare ourselves to the big changes in the delivery of education by learning some fundamental concepts and best practices with regards to remote learning. This is actually our third webinar since July. But before we go to the webinar proper, a few reminders to all the participants. We would like to request everyone to please mute all your mics and put off all your cameras to prevent unwanted interruptions as our speaker delivers the talk. Listen attentively to ensure that you will get the most out of your time attending this webinar. Lastly, we would like to invite everyone to actively participate in the discussions by writing your queries to the chat box. And after the talk, we will relay your questions to be properly addressed by our speaker. Now let's get to know our speaker for this morning, Dr. Edwehna Paderna. Dr. Paderna has obtained a Bachelor of Secondary Education, Master of Arts, and PhD in Chemistry Education in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He holds active membership on various professional organizations, both here and abroad. She also currently serves as the PACT Associate Vice President for External Affairs. She's also been deeply involved in the training of STEM teachers all over the country, serving as a consultant in the Department of Education, development of instruments for spiral progression, research in math and science curricula, and an expert, a technical panel member in the Commission on Higher Education, Basic Education Sector Transformation, National Research Agenda for Teacher Education. Her teaching journey started as a chemistry and earth science teacher in the UP Integrated School. Currently, he is the chair of the Division of Curriculum and Instruction and an associate professor at the University of the Philippines College of Education, teaching both on the undergraduate and graduate levels. It is my pleasure to introduce our very own. Please welcome Teacher Edwehna Paderna.
Thank you, Sir Jasper. Good morning, everyone. Hello po. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Okay, do you see the slide? Okay, wait. I don't see the, okay. I need to see the chat. Okay, so now, here's my first question. Okay. What comes to your mind when you see a bar of soap? Okay, I hope I can get responses from our participants. Organic compounds, okay. Hand washing, COVID, okay, line. So very ano naman to. Okay, what else? Cleaning purposes, surfactant. Wow, Sir Volts. Masyadong high level na yung sagot ni Sir Volts. Surfactant, cleaning, does it smell good? Micelles, saponification. Actually, I've asked this question to one of my in one of my webinars also, and syempre PACT ito na group, and so medyo talagang chemistry ang ating mga sagot. Okay, how about this one? What comes to your mind? Ano po yung naiisip ninyo when you see this picture? Face-to-face classroom. What else po? Normal setup, empty classroom learning, high school, days, happiness, interactive, lecture room, science lecture room, traditional teaching, no students inside the classroom, holiday, missing the normal setting in the classroom. Okay. And this one, ano naman po naiisip natin? Vacation, holiday, beach, peaceful, freedom, sun, unwinding, refreshing, happiness, summer, relax, reliever, sea breeze, end of COVID. Okay, so bakit ko po kaya tinanong kung ano ang naiisip nyo when you see a bar of soap, the beach, or this classroom? Bakit po kaya? Ano yung relationship nito doon, or how is it related to our topic for today? Okay, so if we reflect on our answers earlier, you will notice, okay, that your answers were based on your experiences. At yung mga experiences na yon ay may kinalaman sa context. Okay? So, So yung context, wait lang po kasi yung chat box naman ay kailangan kong, okay. So yung context, yung experience natin ay may kinalaman sa context. So broadly defined by Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is composed of interrelated conditions or the circumstances in which something exists or an event occurs. So it's this definition is very broad, but we can have a more focused definition in science education where context may refer to students' everyday experience of the physical world. But I still believe that this is not just confined to science education, because it's not only science education students or science education teachers who can relate the students' everyday experience to the physical world. It's practically all human beings. And another definition would be a group of learning experiences that encourages students to transfer their understanding of concepts to situations that mirror real life. Okay, so ito, medyo broad pa rin, but this is more focused on the learning experiences of students. Okay, so in my own study, in my dissertation, I defined context as the setting or situation where students experience everyday occurrences or phenomena. So if we are going to relate our context, okay, doon sa sabon, doon sa classroom, and to the beach, for instance, kung kayo ay taga NCR or in an urban area, I think ang context ninyo sa beach ay pang-bakasyon, pang-relax, pang-travel, ganyan. Pero kung kayo ay nasa probinsya and the beach or the ocean is just a walk away, so iba yung konteksto ninyo doon sa beach. So lahat tayo ay nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang konteksto. And context may be classified into 4 categories. So first is the personal. For personal context, these are the closest and most familiar to students as these are the ones they use or observe. The second one is social. So social contexts are those that students share with others. So kung halimbawa, yung sa sabon, when you use the soap as a context in discussing, let's say, basic materials or surfactants, so yung sabon may be personal kasi ginagamit mo ng estudyante sa paliligo niya, sa paglilinis ng kamay, or sa in the context of the pandemic, ito ay kailangan na at least 20 seconds na nag-wash ka with soap para mas makasiguro tayo na makaiwas sa COVID-19. So for social, ito naman yung students share with others. So I think yung sa classroom ay pwede natin masabi na ito ay isang social context. And then the next one is environmental. So for the environmental, these are the contexts that involve the environment. So halimbawa, yung beach na nakita natin kanina, okay, yun ay may kinalaman sa environment. Another one would be if you like to go hiking, so yung mga or mountain climbing, yan. So yung mga may kinalaman sa environment. And the last one is technological or those that involve technology. So, yung sabon, I think, yun ay may kinalaman din sa technology dahil yung paggawa ng sabon mismo ay isang technology. So now, if we have these types of contexts, okay, ano ang nagbago sa mga konteksto na ito? Okay, at paano ito binago ng current pandemic or ng COVID-19? So here, we have what we call VUCA. Okay, it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So because of the pandemic, we are now experiencing more the VUCA world, yung tinatawag na VUCA world. So ang VUCA ay isang acronym, no? volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And this was coined 1987 pa. So it was based on the leadership theories of Warren Bennis and Bert Nanus. And ito yung response ng US Army War College to the colleges to the collapse of the USSR in the early 1990s. So suddenly nagbago yung because of the war, nagbago yung yung status or yung state ng mundo, kaya tinawag na volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So here, we are now in a pandemic, and it's another, hindi siya militaristic war. It's a health issue, and so as teachers, we need to respond, and we can respond accordingly by having a vision, by understanding the situation, by making the situation clear to our students, by being agile. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng agile? Yung mabilis mag-respond doon sa situation or mabilis mag-respond to changes. So, I believe that each one of us, okay, tayong mga teachers, could be a VUCA facilitator. And how do we do that? One way of being a VUCA facilitator, since we want to be understanding, we want to be clear of the situation, to make clear the situation to our students. We want to be agile. We want to have a clearer vision of what, although it's very hard, in fact, to have a clearer vision of what's coming next. But at least we are trying to prepare ourselves for the next academic year, or for some of us siguro nagsimula na yung academic year. And so we would want to share to you on behalf of PACT, we would want to share to you some ideas on how to become a VUCA facilitator. So and I think that since this is a new situation, we need to maximize, or we need to make this a good opportunity for a new learning approach. Or maybe we have already been doing some of what I'll be sharing, but we can still maximize them. Okay. So again, yung context ng students ay very important. So let me share to you. Okay, so this is mahirap i-pronounce, Bronfenbrenner theory. So this is an ecological systems theory. So ang sinasabi lang ng theory na to, okay, if this is our student or the individual or the child, okay, the child belongs to different systems. Okay, so meron tayong tinatawag na microsystem. So the microsystem involves the personal relationships with family members, classmates, teachers, and caregivers. Now, the relationship or the link between each of the microsystem is called the mesosystem. Okay? So, and then there is an exosystem. Ito naman, yung hindi masyadong directly related dun sa student, but it still affects the growth and development of the student or the individual or the child. And yung nasa labas naman, okay, yung macro system. So this includes the values, the laws, and the customs. Now, why am I showing this to you? Because to be able to understand the context of the students, we need to see saan ba nakapwesto ang estudyante. Okay? At sino yung mga nakaka-influence sa growth and development ng student. And in this time of the pandemic, kung hindi lang estudyante, maski tayo, di ba? Lumiit itong ginagalawan natin. Yung ecology natin, lumiit na. And so, ang pinaka magagamit natin na konteksto ay yung nasa bahay. Which brings me, okay, to this one. Okay, this is a part of my dissertation, wherein I wanted to know what the students will be able to generate as context, because normally in the classroom, or in particular in the chemistry classroom, si teacher yung nagbibigay ng context, and the context may be given at the start, or it may be given as an example, or maybe given as an application. Pero dun sa study ko po, ang ginawa ko ay made the students generate their own context. So, at ang nakuha ko po na themes doon sa kanilang pag-generate ng context nila ay yung source, which include the home, the school, and the community, the level of the generated context, so personal ba, social, environmental, technological, and how the students engage to the context. So yung may 2 levels po ito, the frequency of participation, occasional or habitual, and intensity of participation, passive or active. So here, ang tanong niyo siguro ngayon, paano ko na nakuha yung themes na to? So first, okay, I had 3 groups of students. So I have the conventional group, and then the individual student-generated context group, and the collaborative student-generated context group. So let's just take this as a whole. So ang ginawa ko po dun sa study, sa umpisa pa lang, okay, without any input from me, I asked a question, or these 2 questions about acids and bases. In what situations have you experienced acids, bases? And how do you describe acids and bases? So yun lang. It's actually tapping on their prior knowledge and prior or their past experiences on acids and bases. So ito po yung lumabas. So washing, cleaning, eating, drinking, taking medicine, vinegar, detergent. So yan po yung mga words or keywords na lumabas doon sa kanilang activity log. And so, ito pong may mga asterisk, ito yung mga misconceptions ng students. So I was also able to determine the misconceptions of students based on these 2 simple questions. In what situations have you experienced acids and bases? In fact, ang tanong na ito ay tungkol sa context. Pero since mahirap namang i-assume that they know how to, or how context is defined, so I just use in what situations, or how do you describe. But in fact, I'm asking, ano yung na-experience nila, or ano na yung konteksto nila in terms of acids and bases. So the next one is the neutralization reactions. In what situations have you experienced neutralization reaction? Based on your experiences, what happens in a neutralization reaction? So here, ang mga lumabas naman, yung soft drinks and Mentos. Okay, so again, another misconception, meron nagsabing hyperacidity, antacid counters acidity. Ito, yung putting cold water in hot water, again, this is a misconception. Killing bacteria is a misconception. Putting water in lemon juice, misconception din. A process, ito, medyo advanced yung sumagot nito. A process where an acid and base becomes neutral, pH 7. Acid and base react with each other. Volcano models with vinegar and baking soda. So ito na yung mga konteksto ng estudyante on neutralization reactions. And then I also asked about reduction oxidation reactions, and based on their experiences, what happens in a reduction oxidation reaction. So makikita na rin natin na habang humihirap yung topic, okay, or nagiging advanced yung topic, medyo nababawasan din ang kanilang sagot. And electrochemical cells, ito naman ay tungkol sa batteries, positive and negative terminals, batteries leak, overheat and explode. Okay, so yan po yung kanilang mga sinagot on batteries. And so, para malaman ko yung sources of student-generated context, ito na yung nakita ko. So, pinag-aralan ko yung mga sagot nila, and then I was able to determine or to cluster the answers into themes, which are the home, the school, and the community. Okay, so yung sa community, ang sagot lang nila ay itong galvanized nails and sheets used in manufacturing different goods and electroplated cars. Okay, and then next ay ito naman, yung sa levels, again, looking into their answers or their context, kaya nailagay natin or nakategorize natin according to the levels of their student-generated context. And finally, yung student engagement, frequency of participation, and intensity of participation. So, if you notice here, yung occasional, okay, muriatic acid, bleach, antacid, tapos yung habitual, vinegar, detergent, hand soap, mas madalas nilang ginagamit. And yung intensity of participation naman, okay, passive kasi hindi naman nila, they are probably more of an observer than an active user of the acids and bases. So yan po yung naging proseso kung paano ko nakuha itong nature of student-generated context. Now, why did I share this to you? Because in one of my recommendations is for the teachers to use the context that the student generated themselves. Why? Because yung mga konteksto na nanggaling mismo sa estudyante, ito yung mga experiences or mga context na kung saan sila ay mas makaka-relate. At ito yung mas meaningful sa kanila. And so, para maging relevant, meaningful, and useful sa mga learners yung ating curriculum, we have to contextualize it. So we have to relate the curriculum to a particular setting, situation, or area of application to make the competencies relevant, meaningful, and useful to all learners. So I've looked into the most essential learning competencies, and I have gathered or chosen some learning competencies that we can use to achieve, or use context-based learning to achieve them. So for alam kong junior high school, senior high school, and tertiary level tayo. Pero I just want to go as low as grade 4, and just to illustrate how context-based learning may be used in the classroom. So in the science classroom here in this particular case. So for grade 4, okay, so if we want to look into the classification or classify materials based on the ability to absorb water, float, sink, undergo decay, so focusing on absorbance of water, maybe we can make use of ito pong cotton balls and yung scotch tape. These are materials that can be found or can be accessed, easily accessible to students inside their homes. And so if we make use of this context or these materials, so we will be able to discuss the absorbance of water. So we can say for grade 4 na mas if we can ask them to try out or spill a few amount of water and see if the cotton ball a cotton ball or a strip of scotch tape could absorb the water. And so we can also relate these two materials to the different types of masks that we can see people using in this time of the pandemic, during this time of the pandemic. So if we would look into the protection, okay, that we would be able to get by using these types of masks, we can say that yung cloth mask na madalas natin makita na nasuot ng mga tao, pati yung sponge mask, ay hindi nakaka-protect at all from the COVID-19 or from the virus. Okay, so this is just a way to contextualize a science lesson. Now for grade 7, so I've chosen distinguish mixtures from substances based on a set of properties. So ito, okay, so we could use yung paghuhugas ng bigas, or ito sa community, I think meron pa namang mga nagtitinda ng taho. Okay, kasi dito sa amin ay meron pa ako naririnig na sumisigaw ng taho. And then of course yung coffee, and then for substances that they could find in their homes, so you have table sugar and table salt. These are just some examples that I can think of. So I'm sure that most of you would be able to think so much more than what I have shown here. Okay, for grade 8, explain physical changes in terms of the arrangement and motion of atoms and molecules. So maybe you can ask them if what will happen if they leave an ice cold glass of water or a bottle of cold water and leave it on the table. What will happen to the the glass or to the bottle. And then, of course, you have here the freezing of ice, and then um, the steam, the formation of steam from boiling water. For grade 9, we can have here the classes and uses of organic compounds. And so we can introduce here the volatile organic compounds, and we could discuss, okay, the acetone, benzene, dichlorobenzene, formaldehyde. So, and also where they can be found. And these are actually found in their homes. And we could intensify or widen or maximize the use of context or the context-based learning by integrating the health effects of these VOCs. And for grade 10, if we would want to apply the principles of conservation of mass to chemical reactions, or for in particular, explain how the factors affecting rates of chemical reactions, how they are applied in food preservation and materials production, then we can actually talk about their leftover food, why they put their leftover food in the refrigerator, or why is it that in terms of the concentration of reactants, why is it that one way to extinguish fire is to cover the burning material with cloth, or with wet cloth, so that we want to decrease the oxygen supply. Okay. And for grade 11, for General Chemistry 1, use the gas laws to determine pressure, volume, or temperature of a gas under certain conditions of change. So, ito, pwede natin gamitin sa bahay or ipagawa sa bahay. Okay, so since grade 11, yan, we just have to remind our students to be very careful when they do activities. Okay, especially yung when handling hot water, etc. Okay, so if you have 2 basins and empty water bottle, plastic water bottle, and then the ice, and then yung hot water, we can actually demonstrate Boyle's law here. We can actually see the relationship between pressure and temperature. So makikita nila that when they submerge an empty bottle doon sa basin with hot water, and then after that submerge it to the cold bath, okay, makikita nila na magde-deform itong plastic bottle. Okay, so what I've shown to you are just examples of contexts that we can make use to achieve those learning competencies in the grade 7 to 12 curriculum of DepEd. And there will be, the PACT has prepared or is finalizing the curated resources that will be available to all PACT members. So we will be posting the link doon po sa ating website at the end of this month or early September. So we're just finalizing the content of the link for the curated resources. So doon po mas madami kayong makukuhang ideas on how to deliver the lessons with the corresponding learning competencies. Okay, so why is it important that we make use of context-based learning. So, una po ay dahil, okay, we want our lessons to be relatable and relevant to our students. So kapag mas nakaka-relate ang mga estudyante natin doon sa lesson, there is a bigger chance that they will be able to have a deeper understanding of the chemistry concept. And then, of course, it taps into their experience, and so they will be more motivated to study about the concept and even read some more and do some more activities about the chemistry topic. And if we use their own context, the chemistry concept will be more accessible for the students, and it will be more assimilated. So mas madali nilang ma-access yon in other situations. It will be more applicable to other situations. And finally, okay, it will give an opportunity for lifelong learning, dahil ito yung mga tatatak sa kanila, dahil na-experience nila, dahil nakarelate sila doon sa activity, dahil nakaka-relate sila doon sa konsepto. They were able to experience the concepts, kaya mas tatatak sa kanila, and they will be able to have that in them for a long time. So let me ask you, okay? Kayo po, bilang mga naging estudyante rin ng chemistry, ano po ang pinakatumatak sa inyong concept? And why? Okay, so I'll give you around 20 seconds. Siguro yung mga medyo matagal nang naging estudyante ng chem, baka medyo kailangan mga 30 seconds. Sige po, isipin po natin, ano yung pinakatumatak sa inyong konsepto ng chemistry dahil sa may activity na pinagawa si teacher sa inyo na hindi nyo makakalimutan, at dahil doon, naintindihan nyo ng husto yung chemistry. Si Ma'am Vic ay gas loss. Ako din, favorite ko ang gas loss. Wow, food chem. Gas loss. Di ba ang gas loss yung ang daming applications. Ano po yung mga pinagawa sa inyo sa gas loss? Ma'am Richelle. Nakita ko merong si Ma'am Richelle. Ano yung environmental chemistry? Hands-on. Collapsing can. Oo. Parang ganun din yung kanina, yung may basin, merong plastic bottle, and ice at saka hot water. Water chemistry. Solutions, oo, solutions colloids. Oo, yung paggawa ng ice cream. Burning money experiment. Boyle's law. Yung syringe with marshmallow. Relatable with Beirut now. Yes, oo nga. Yung titration. Madaming colligative property si Hazel. Hi, Hazel. Gas loss application. pH color changes. Yan. Paborito rin yan ng mga estudyante. Yung mga change, pagbabago sa kulay, pagbabago sa amoy. Yan. Yung nafe-feel nila, yung nasa-sense nila, and yun, kasi na-experience nila. Okay? Sige. Solution, pwede sa preparation ng salted egg. Yes. Daming ideas. Properties of water. Ano po yung sa properties of water, Ma'am Maricar, if I may ask? Ano po ang hindi ninyo makalimutan na pinagawa ng chem teacher ninyo? Okay? Floating pin ng surface tension. Okay. So, yung ginawa ko ng grade 5 student pa lang ako. Testing of starch using iodine. Wow! Grade 5. Sige. Hi, Jameson. Okay. So, yung mga, may mga students ako dito. Okay? So, moving forward, ano yung benefits? Ito yung mga, nakuha ko naman na benefits doon sa aking study. So, the perception of subject or course relevance increases or becomes better. Okay? Dahil, kung I think it's human nature that when something is relevant to you, or if you have a good perception or look into something, mas 'di ba, mas may tatak or mas uh, uh, mas naaalala natin. Of course, merong magsasabi na syempre in some cases yung extreme pain din naman would really be parang rooted sa inyong loob-looban. Okay, so level of motivation, interest, and satisfaction in one's achievement. So tataas din, mas magiging motivated ang mga estudyante, mas magiging interested, magiging mas mafe-feel nila na meron silang achievement. And later, I will discuss a bit of constructivism, and we can relate it to context-based learning. Depth and relevance of learning outcomes. So, mas makikita nila yung relevance nung mga nasa learning competencies natin or yung gusto natin na ma-achieve nila. Kasi a big part of a student's understanding or deep understanding of concepts in general, okay, ay yung kailangan ma-experience nila, kailangan makita nila yung relevance. And also, pag sinabi nating depth and relevance of learning outcomes, hindi ito kayang ibigay ng isang teacher, itong depth na to, if the teacher is poor in content knowledge. So, as I've always been telling my participants or my students, hindi enough yung strategies. Okay, so now I'm talking about context-based learning. So it's an approach. It's a strategy. But as teachers, we have to be mindful also that we have the accurate content being delivered to our students. And if we are knowledgeable of our content, of our subject matter, then we can have, or we can be more creative. Mas madami tayong maiisip na mga context ng ating mga estudyante that we can have deeper discussion and broader contextualization of the topics. And of course, meron tayong conceptual change na mapoproduce sa ating mga estudyante. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, context-based learning and constructivism. So here, what I just want to emphasize or highlight, okay, and I'm also, yung first namin ni Sir Volz, ang ating PACT President ng National Chapter. Yung first encounter namin ni Sir Volz ay dahil they contacted me, yung UP Manila na chemistry department nila, ay kinontak ako para magbigay ng seminar workshop on how they could have an educational flavor or chem-ed flavor doon sa kanilang ginagawang revision ng chemistry manual. So, usually, especially in the tertiary level, ano po ba ang ginagawa? Di ba merong lecture, tas merong lab. Usually, ang ginagawa ay nagpapalab muna. And then, yung result sa lab ay i-discuss doon sa, ang una pala ginagawa ay nagpapa-lecture muna. Okay, magdi-discuss sa lecture ng concepts. Okay, nawala ko yung screen ko. Sorry po. Wait lang, nawala. Sorry. Ayan. Okay. So, ang unang pinapagawa usually ay yung lecture, magdi-discuss ng concepts, and then maglalab. Okay? So, when you are doing the lecture, ang tanong ko, do you think your students are able to relate to the concepts that you are lecturing about? Okay? So, yun yung pag-isipan natin. Na kapag nag-lecture tayo agad, halimbawa, nag-discuss tayo tungkol sa Boyle's Law, agad-agad. Okay? Without any activity, do you think Boyle's Law will make sense to our students? So, ang ginagawa, nag-lecture muna and then nagla-lab. Okay? Doon sa lab, ma-verify, ma-validate yung isang law na existing na for so many years. So, ang nangyayari, the students are just validating and verifying what you as the teacher or the lecturer has discussed to them. So, parang, di ba, nawawalan sila ng opportunity to discover, nawawalan sila ng opportunity to construct their own knowledge. And so, ito po ang gusto kong i-suggest sa inyo or i-recommend that let's let our students construct his or her own knowledge. Dahil kapag itong nangyari at meron silang activity na nagagawin, they will be able to experience the activity themselves. Actually, mas magaan na rin yun for the teachers because the teacher will just be the facilitator of the construction of their own knowledge. The teacher will just provide opportunities for learners to experience the concepts. Ang challenge lang dito for the teachers ay yung questioning. Kailangan yung pag-guide for the students to be able to construct their own knowledge, yan ay kailangan logically sequenced. Hindi pwedeng, ayun pa, sinasabi ko rin, do not assume that our students already know the answer to our questions, especially if you are talking about the gas laws. Diba? If your lesson on hand, okay, yung lesson nyo for the day ay gas laws, and then mag-umpisa ka, tatanungin mo kung ano yung gas laws. You will ask, what is Boyle's Law? What is Charles' Law? Okay? Hindi nila yan masasagot kasi yun nga yung dapat na ituturo sa kanila. And so, ito po yung ating maganda sanang i-try out. Let's do ABC. Ang ibig sabihin, activity before content, and CBA in our classrooms. Ano yung CBA? These are context-based activities. So let's do activity before content and as much as possible, the activities be context-based activities. So yun po yung sinasuggest ko na as much as possible, actually it's a paradigm shift. Kasi nakasanayan na talaga natin na magle-lecture muna, especially sa tertiary, magle-lecture muna, and then, tsaka yung lab. So, parang ang nangyayari nga, we're just validating existing concepts. So, hindi na nila ma-discover or even if they fail, even if they do not get the correct results, the accurate results, meron pa rin value yun eh. Kasi mas maiintindihan nila bakit hindi accurate, bakit hindi tama yung nakuha nating results. Okay. So, yung last part po ay yung assessment in context-based teaching and learning. So, for context-based teaching and learning, sa assessment natin, okay, so at the planning stage, it is vital to make decisions about when and how students will be assessed and evidence of performance collected. In an applied, investigative, context-based approach, much of the learning and achievement of outcomes occurs during the process of undertaking the task set for the learner. So the task itself forms the content of the assessment, and in this during this time, it's very hard to know whether it is our students who are really doing the work. So it is important that we collect evidence and record student outcomes. So itong collection of evidence and recording student outcomes, maganda rin that we document, okay? We document the process on how they were able to come up with the output. We can make them do a video while they are performing the task. Tapos ito usually ginagawa naman na natin ito, we ask them to make brochures. So ito na yung mga alternative assessment na pwede natin ipagawa sa kanila kasi nga it's very difficult now to monitor the taking of test, 'di ba? Especially kung yung normal usual na paper and pen test na pinapagawa natin. Okay, so performance of practical tasks associated with teacher or peer observation and reporting. Ito yung sinasabi ko, yung student documentation and reports of planning, research, and work. Kasi dito makikita natin na sila talaga yung gumagawa. Student self-assessment sheets, reflections, or journal, and diary entries. Okay, so now let me summarize by answering the question, how do we maximize context-based learning in the chemistry classroom? So first, we have to understand the learner's context. That's why I started by sharing to you ano ba yung categories ng context. So meron tayong source, meron tayong level, meron tayong engagement ng student dun sa sarili niyang context. And then I've also shown to you the ecological learning theory na in this time of the pandemic, talagang lumiit yung circles at nag-focus na lang talaga doon sa bahay, especially below 21 naman, I suppose, yung mga estudyante natin. So, bawal talaga sila lumabas since March. So, nandun lang sila confined sa kanilang mga bahay. So, let's maximize by knowing and understanding our learners' context. Recognize the importance and benefits of context-based learning. Okay. So I'm hoping that you see now the value of context-based learning. Use the learner's context in preparing lessons, activities, and assessment. So context-based activities po, context-based assessment. And whenever possible and appropriate, do activity before content. And let me end my sharing with you with this quotation. Life learning is about respecting the everyday experiences that enable children to understand and to interact with the world and their culture. So maraming salamat po. I'm now ready for the questions. I'll stop share. Okay. Hi, Sir Jasper. Opo, sa DepEd, lab activity first before lecture. That's good. Laboratory experiences will develop scientific reasoning abilities of students. Agree po ako kay Ma'am Jocelyn. Okay, meron po bang questions? Pag magpapagawa ng activity, bibigyan ba ang students ng procedure o sila ang magde-design? This is a very good question. In my dissertation with the student-generated context teaching approach that I developed, dahil sa kanila nang galing yung context, ang pinagawa ko po sa kanila, sila rin ang gagawa ng sarili nilang activity. So, for instance, doon sa lesson, sa topic ng batteries, ang tanong, ang prompt question doon ay, how do batteries work? So there was this one group na para masagot nila yon, they dissected the battery. Of course, meron naman silang may protective naman sila, gear sila. So, yun, nakita nila na doon, kasi busted na yung battery na dinisect nila. So nakita nila na solid na yung nasa loob. And so they were able to find out, okay, and discover, okay, yun yung maganda na discover nila na yung solution doon, yung chemical reaction nang gagaling doon, yun ang that's what make the batteries work. Pero hindi naman po lahat ay pwede natin na sila yung mag-design. Depende rin naman po sa activity. Pwede rin na bibigyan natin sila ng tinatawag na yung usual natin na recipe type na with procedure na activities.
Okay, may question po tayo, ma'am.
It can be a recipe type of lab activity or you can allow this, ayun, yun yung sinabi, very good naman, si Ma'am Edlin. It can be a recipe type of lab activity or you can allow the students to develop their own design. Okay. Yes, Sir Jasper, meron pa?
Okay. Question po. Wait.
Meron dito kay
from Lionel Lumogdang. In a context-based learning, ma'am, how can we objectively or check their output? If you solicit their learning variations of answer is expected since they do have different contexts.
Opo. So, I guess yung ating rubric, paggawa ng rubric, marami naman din po sa online na mga pwede nating ma-adapt or ma-revise na mga rubrics to suit our own activities na pinapagawa sa mga estudyante natin, and at the same time ay it will be appropriate for our Philippine context, it will be appropriate for the activity. So meron pong mga rubrics na available online that we can make use as guides. Kasi nga hindi na siya parang objective type lang na merong correct answer. So it will be varied. The output would be varied. The context of our students will be varied. Kaya yon, I guess it would be best to make use of rubrics.
Ma'am, another question from Ma'am Marnella Ginto. For the semester, since it is online and module-based, is it ideal to have home-based experiments? Di po ba magkakaroon ng magkakaproblema sa safety?
Yun din yung actually tanong last time, di ba? Yung last webinar, we still do not have any set of guidelines or protocol in terms of safety of at saka yung yung accountability. Who will be held accountable if something untoward happens inside the house of the students. Kaya it's very important then that we select the activities that we want our students to do. So, sa kanilang mga bahay. And if I may, wala akong naririnig kasi na guidelines ng DepEd. Wala rin akong alam na guidelines ng CHED. So, yon, hindi ko po pasensya po, hindi ko po masasagot kung ano yung protocols and guidelines. So, I guess it's nasa natin mga teachers, yung kumbaga discretion or yung ating prudent judgment kung ano yung ating pwedeng ipagawa at hindi ipagawa ng mga activities sa mga estudyante.
Eto po ma'am, medyo mahaba. Pero can you share your strategy po? Sabi po, an online class in teaching some strategy from Ma'am Jodel Galapon.
Okay.
To make chemistry subject more interesting in our students.
Actually, ito pong context-based. Talagang ko na. Kumbaga, nasubukan ko na if you make use of what the students have in their immediate environment, yung makaka-relate sila. Kasi maski naman tayo, 'di ba? Yung connection ng mga tao sa isa't isa. 'Di ba? Halimbawa, you first meet a person, 'di ba? So ang pag-uusapan nyo ay yung meron kayong something in common. So that's why doing an activity before the content first is very important for me because it levels off the experiences of the students. If you have one activity na ipapagawa na well thought of, na meron kang mga materials na sa tingin mo ay meron yung mga estudyante ninyo, then it would be easier. I'm telling you, it would be easier for you as a teacher to connect with your students when you discuss the content. Kasi meron na kayong common ground. Yun yung importante na
follow-up question po from Sir Marvelino Velarde. With regards to difficult, quote-unquote, concepts like quantum mechanical model, paano daw po parang ma-apply yung CBL, context-based learning, in these topics?
Yung quantum mechanical model ng atom, yan yung mga tricky na context-based. So I think yung analogy, yung thinking of an analogy doon sa mga mahihirap na topics, And then, from the analogy, gamitan ng mga available material. Kahit sasabihin mo lang na itong material na to, kapag halimbawa ginamit mo, then it would represent this in the quantum mechanical model of the atom, for instance. So, yun lang po yung naiisip ko ngayon tungkol dun sa, or even electron configuration to students, since these topics are not experienced by the students. So, yung electron configuration, analogy pa rin eh. And then maybe you can, kasi siguro na, well, ang hirap din kasi iniisip ko, sabihin na dun sa bahay nila may mga kwarto, ganon, diba? Tapos dun sa kwarto, or pwede naman sigurong sabihin natin ay building, dahil naka-experience naman siguro ng buildings yung mga estudyante, kahit hindi naman in particular home-based lang or home lang or sa bahay lang yung konteksto. So you can make use of what you think they have already experienced, because I'm sure they could remember those and they could relate to those.
Ayan, ma'am. So I guess we could accommodate a couple of more questions.
Meron
Sige
nag-send
po.
dito in private. In remote learning that we will be adopting in the new normal, what could be the most effective assessment tool for collaborative learning skill? So, yung sa collaborative learning, ang mahirap eh, kasi iba-iba rin yung context ng mga estudyante natin. If, una, or do they have access to the internet? Diba? Yun yung una natin kailangan. Kasi kung may access sila sa internet and they'll do collaborative learning, I think ang kailangan pa rin ay yung well-designed rubric na meron yung component doon na for collaboration. So, and then pwedeng magpa-peer rating ka sa kanila. Diba? Para malaman mo sinong gumawa nito, kung tumulong ba yung isang group member nila, and so on. So, yun lang po yung ma-offer ko na nasagot tungkol doon sa sa collaborative learning skill assessment tool.
Another question from Miss Princess Lydia Fuentes. How can we address science misconceptions in context-based learning?
How can we address misconceptions in context-based learning? Yung context-based learning po kasi is an approach. Ang misconceptions, regardless of the approach. So, ang importante po ay, as I've mentioned, alam natin yung content. As teachers, dapat alam natin yung content. But of course, there will be times that we will be slipping. Okay, medyo mawawala tayo sa tamang or accurate content. Pero ang importante, we are able to paano ba? Pwede nating mapa-unlearn yung misconceptions. Pero yun nga yung mahirap. Kaya kung ang sinasabi ko sa mga estudyante ko, especially sa undergrad, sa College of Education, kung hindi nyo alam, sabihin nyo muna sa estudyante nyo na I'll take a look into that, because it's harder to unlearn a misconception than delay, okay, than delay the right answer. Mas maayos na sabihin na, sige, titingnan ko muna yung sagot sa tanong mo, okay? Rather than give an answer that you're not sure of the accuracy. Dahil, yun nga mahirap mag-unlearn ng isang concept.
Ma'am, one last question from Ma'am Maria Teresa Fajardo. Is it possible to group the topics in chemistry into teams to create a good contextualization?
Yes.
For example, chemistry of chocolates, chemistry of ice creams, food spoilage, what will happen? This would mean rearranging the topics in the syllabus.
Oo. So, kung if you have the leeway, if you have that freedom na i-revise pa yung MELCs, yung curriculum with the MELCs, that will be a very good idea. Why? Because yan na yung integration ng different concepts. Nagiging, kumbaga, mas malawak pa kasi kung magiging project-based or phenomenon-based ang ipapagawa natin. Dahil the more concepts that are integrated into one activity, the more meaning that the students will get from that activity. So, yun po yung yun, kung kayang gawin na ganun, kaya meron din kami with Dr. Mel Garcia, di ba, merong coffee in the context, coffee as context in chemistry. So, kasi yung halimbawa, yung coffee pa lang, madami ka nang ma-discuss doon na chemistry concepts. Pero, kung halimbawa, ikaw naman ay nasa Baguio at ang context mo ay more of strawberry, or kung halimbawa ay nasa beach naman malapit ang inyong school, di ba? So, mas maganda na nandoon yung konteksto ng ipapagawa ninyo.
Okay, so with that, thank you very much for